So today, I'm speaking on finding courage in challenging times, finding courage in difficult times. I read this week a definition of encouragement. I love that word, encouragement. I love to receive encouragement. And the definition for encouragement is to instill courage, to instill courage. And having courage, it doesn't mean that we're completely free of fear, but it does mean that we find the capacity to act despite fear. We find the capacity to act despite feeling fear. For example, a week before last, I had to go to the dentist, and it's my least favorite place to be. And I was talking to my partner about it. I had to have a pretty simple procedure. Actually, tomorrow I have oral surgery, so please hold me in your prayers tomorrow. But I was telling my partner, and he said, you know, you're in good hands. And because it's his dentist too, I was very comforted by that, and I hung on to those words. Those words became my mantra, so that when I was able to walk into the dentist office and sit in the chair and stay in the chair. I kept repeating, "You're in good hands." I must have repeated it, I don't know, 200 times while I was sitting in that chair in a half an hour period. So those simple words, "You're in good hands," gave me courage, gave me courage. I read a meme. I told you I read a meme that said January was a tough year, but we made it. And gosh, yeah. I mean, it has really seemed incredibly demanding to stay present with all that's happening in the world. And yet there is so much good. You know, there's so much good. There's the beauty of this snow. I've just been in awe, especially in the moonlight last night. I was just in awe of the beauty of the landscape and how that just gave my heart courage, gave my heart joy, like your poem was describing. So sometimes, you know, it takes a lot of courage to meet what the moment is demanding. Sometimes the moment is demanding a lot. And sometimes we need courage just to get out of bed, right? Sometimes the courage we need is to put the love that we are into action, into action. It might be something we've never done, right? It might be stepping into unknown territory, right? These recent fires in Los Angeles reminded me, they reminded me so much of everything I went through when my house burned down in the Paradise campfire. And I just really could relate to all the things that they were saying and all the things that they were going through. And it reminded me, well, you know, when that happened, a fifth of my congregation in Oroville lost their homes. So it was really demanding for me. I really actually felt like they gave me courage and I gave them courage. You know, we were just giving each other courage and lifting each other up in community, like, you know, we do here. But there was one story I want to share with you, a true story about what happened on that day of the Paradise Fire, November 8th, 2018. That is such an incredible story. It's about a school bus driver, and his name is Kevin McKay. And Kevin McKay drove a school bus. And on that morning, he was responding to an emergency call. He'd already taken the kids to school and gone home. And he responded to an emergency call that he needed to come to Ponderosa Elementary, which was just down the street from my house. And so he drove back into the fire, and he picked up 22 children. On the way, he had learned that his family, his wife and kids, had gotten out. So he felt, you know, they were safe, and he wanted to go make sure these 22 children that were there were safe. They had no way to, the parents couldn't get to them. So he went and he picked them up along with 2 teachers. And they all got on the bus, and that fire came on so fast. There were 200-foot flames. If you've ever been to Paradise, it used to be all these old growth trees, you know, really tall. I mean, just pine trees everywhere. Like, you know, so the flames were just lining the road 200 feet tall, and the heat was unbelievable. So the two teachers that got on the bus with Kevin, he asked them to keep the kids occupied, to keep them calm, and that really helped them. They were interviewed later, and they said it was that assignment that kept them from crying and just completely going into despair. So they were praying with the children, and as they were stuck in traffic, and the smoke was so black you couldn't see anything. It was like completely midnight. Um, they were starting to cough, and their eyes were burning. And so Kevin took off his shirt, and he ripped it into strips. And he said, give each, there was a bottle of water, get the strips wet, give each child one to wear over their nose and mouth. So the children all had their little strips of his T-shirt. Mind you, it's November. It's not warm. and they were stuck on the highway, stop and go, stop and go. They were on the route I took every Sunday to church, 23-minute drive usually. It took them 5 hours, but he got them to safety. I think he got them to Oroville, got them to safety. And he waited, even once they got there, until every parent came and claimed their children. And an aside that was amazing to me is that he actually, when he had been told his family got out, he had also been told he lost his house. So he knew that he lost his house. And so, they called Kevin McKay a hero, but in his interview, he said, actually, I'm not the hero. The heroes were the ones going towards the fire. I was on the road getting away from the fire, getting these children away from the fire, but the heroes were all those fire trucks going towards danger. And there was also one of the children was interviewed, and the child said that she was very sad that a number of her pets, her animal friends, had died in the fire, but she was so incredibly grateful for this man, Kevin McKay, that she would never forget him, that none of them would ever forget him. So what an act of courage and determination to save those children. I love that story so much, because courage inspires courage, doesn't it? Courage inspires courage. We're so touched when people forget their self-interest, when they just act for the greater good, even at great expense sometimes, possible great expense to themselves. And we all have this beautiful quality of heart. I love that you mentioned that. I knew that, but I didn't put that in my talk, that core is the word for heart. It's like the heart that is so good. It's our innate goodness. And we all have it. Sometimes we don't even know it, though, till it spontaneously arises. I think Kevin McKay surprised himself as much as anybody else. So I found a wonderful teaching. I actually have never given a talk on courage, and I really have loved meditating on this subject this week. I found a teaching on 4 steps to finding courage in difficult times. And the first step is to see yourself as courageous. If we describe ourselves as courageous, we're more likely to act courageously. I tell myself I'm courageous when I take myself to the dentist, which I'm doing again tomorrow. I tell myself I'm courageous when I stand up here and just do my best to be as authentic as I can be with you all. So take a moment and just take an inventory of your life and note the ways that you're courageous. Note the ways that you're courageous. Like I said, it could be just getting out of bed, at certain times. Some days that takes a lot of courage. Or maybe you're fighting a chronic health issue, or you're moving through a health issue, and you're being strong and brave. I know some of you are. And I'm so inspired by that. That takes real courage. Maybe you're courageous because you took a chance to write that blog or write that book or leave that relationship or start that relationship, right? It takes courage to show up and to face our fears and to find our inner calm. And one of the things that helps me so much that I absolutely have to do is I have to remember in myself and in all of humanity that our true nature is undying. It is untouched. Our true nature is eternal. And when I really rest in that, like I feel like we have rested in that this morning. We've rested in the love and in the peace. And the nervous system calms down, and the mind and all its fear thoughts calm down. And we feel that undying, unchanging, eternal nature that is always all right. That place where all is well and all will be well. There's a scripture I love, especially from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 20. It says, "For the soul, there is never birth nor death. For the soul, there is never birth nor death. Nor having once been, does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, undying, and primeval. She is not slain when the body is slain." Yeah. You know, and that's why the awakened ones have no fear. I've never seen anybody as fearless as Alma. Alma is so fearless. She, you know, in the early days, she would get cobras out of the temple. Twice she got cobras out of the temple in India. And I watched her when that there was that big tsunami in 2006. And South India, where she was, her ashram got completely flooded. I mean, really flooded, like scary, washing people away flooded. And she was out there directing everybody. She's just, you know, tied up her hair, tied up her sari, and she was out there just directing everybody in what to do. Everybody was panicking, and she was keeping them calm. So, you know, see yourself as courageous and cultivate that awareness of that which is untouched. We have to bring that in and let it meet our minds that, you know, have the fear thoughts sometimes. Standing in the light and the love that we are, I'm really feeling a fierce devotion growing in me. That is standing for what's right. That is really has to stand for what's right and defend the vulnerable. Defend the vulnerable and what we know in our hearts is right. I've always, I remember years ago, I really saw how there's so much strength and power in unity. There's so much strength and power when we are united and we support each other in living the Dharma and inspiring courage in one another. You know, sometimes I think humanity can get lost collectively in a kind of a herd-like consciousness and do that othering thing, like the others are not me, we're separate. And we know the deepest truth is there is no separation. So the second step in growing our courage is remembering our heroes, remembering our heroes. So I want you to call out, I want you to name your heroes. Name one hero. Martin Luther King, Maya Angelou, Mahatma Gandhi, Jimmy Carter, Michelle Obama, Helen Keller, yes. Bernie Sanders, Vandana Shiva, John Lennon, yes. Oprah, Desmond Tutu, thank you. I was going to say that. Nelson Mandela, yes. Henry David Thoreau, yes. Jesus, thank you. I was waiting for that. The Dalai Lama, thank you. Mary Magdalene, yes. Ramana Maharshi. Thich Nhat Hanh, thank you. Thank you. Amma, Mata Amritananda Mayi. Say that 5 times fast. Beautiful. Wow. Do you feel the energy? Oh, and type it in the Zoom. I guess you're all typing it in the Zoom. The energy. We just remember, we say their names, and that energy is in here, and we're all uplifted. We're remembering people that give us so much courage, that inspire our deepest values. You know, and sometimes our heroes are unsung. They're people that are not famous at all. the school bus driver, Kevin McKay, he's one, right? Many of you are my heroes, everyday heroes. Viktor Frankl, right? He wrote that book, Man's Search for Meaning. And I'll give a talk on that because I love that. I've given a talk on that book before. But, he survived Nazi death camps, and he got out. His whole family didn't make it, but he got out and wrote that book. And he describes how so much can be taken away, but we always have free will to keep our humanity, to keep growing our humanity and living our humanity. And in some situations, like a Nazi death camp, that takes incredible courage, right? I can't imagine it. I really can't. So I read a story recently that touched me deeply about another hero I'd never heard of. I want to tell you the story. It's about an English man named Nicholas Winston. Anybody heard of Nicholas Winston? Oh, you have. So it was 1938. He's a British man, and the Nazis were in the process of occupying Czechoslovakia. And he organized transport for 669 children, mostly Jewish, from Czechoslovakia to Britain. And he ensured their safe passage through Europe. And he found a home in Britain for each child. 669 children. It was incredibly risky. It was a selfless act. And he didn't even tell his wife for 50 years. He wasn't interested in fame. And he did become famous, though, because his wife told the BBC about this extraordinary endeavor after she found his journals and scrapbooks in the attic in 1988. I know. And so the BBC invited Nicholas to come to a show they were producing called That's Life. And what he didn't know, the BBC had contacted all those people he had saved. And they were in their 50s and their 60s. And these people were in the audience that day. So at one point, the presenter, he's interviewing Nicholas. He says, "Now, is there anyone in the audience tonight who owes their life to Nicholas Winston? Would you please stand?" And everyone in the audience stood up. And he was so blown away that he just started sobbing. And Nicholas Winston lived a long life. He lived to 106 years old. He passed away in 2015. Isn't that amazing? I was just so touched by that story. So inspiring. So courage is contagious. It's contagious. We see it and we remember. We remember who we are. We remember what we're here for, right? And, we put love in action. It inspires us to actualize our spirituality. I think that's where we're at now. We've done a lot of studying. We've read a lot of books. We've done a lot of workshops. It's now time to walk that talk more than ever, right? So that's step number 2, the courage. We grow from remembering our heroes and reading stories about our heroes. I've been finding the writings of Rebecca Solnit. She's inspiring. Some of you maybe are reading her. She's a Harvard-educated historian. She's very inspiring in recent days. Yeah, Catherine. And this is what she says. I love these words. "The fact that we cannot save everything does not mean we cannot save anything. And everything we can save is worth saving. You may need to grieve or scream or take time off, but you have a role no matter what. And right now, good friends and good principles are worth gathering in. Remember what you love. Remember what loves you. Remember in this time, in this tide of hate, what love is. What love is." So the third practice in growing courage is clarifying what we value. And that's why I gave a talk 2 weeks ago on ethics, and I'm going to, the 5 mindfulness trainings, that I'm going to speak soon on the other 3. But the first two ethic training, mindfulness trainings we talked about from Thich Nhat Hanh are reverence for life, reverence for all life, and being fully aware of our interbeingness and finding happiness and experiencing our interbeingness. And those two things they go hand in hand, right? You know, I think of Nicholas Winston. He felt connected to those children he saved. You know, he felt that interbeingness in his heart. You know, he felt those innocent children certainly did not deserve to die because of their ethnicity, right? So someday, standing in our values, it takes real perseverance. We have to keep walking, whether it's sunny or raining. I love that. So to get in touch with your values even further, you can ask yourself, what do I stand for? And what do I value in myself? I like that question. What do I value in myself? It'd be a really neat thing to do in a workshop. Maybe we'll do it at my retreat to pair people up and have you share that. What is important to me, right? What is important to me? Our conviction, our strong sense of what we value influences our actions, of course. The more powerfully we believe in love, the more unswayed we'll be by hatred, right? By intolerance. So I want to hear what values matter to you. I want you to call out a value. Kindness, integrity, honesty, life, sovereignty, creativity, justice, compassion, double compassion, cooperation, yes, appreciation, friendship, gratitude, service, humility, inclusion. Yes. I've got chills. I'm really feeling the energy of these words. They have energy. Authenticity. Forgiveness. Yes. What was that? Presence. Presence. Reverence for life. Joy. Dancing. I feel like I'm in the right place. Thank you so much. I so appreciate hearing that and feeling that, the energy of that. So the fourth step in growing courage is being willing to make mistakes. Being willing to make mistakes. I remember when I first thought I wanted to be a public speaker, I was in junior college, and I took a class on public speaking. And, you know, we all had to get up and take turns giving 5-minute presentations. And oh my goodness, my first time, my hands were sweating and my throat was so dry I couldn't swallow. And I got up in front of that class of about 30 people and my face turned beet red. I mean, beet red. And I have no idea what I said. I was terrorized. I find terror to be rather paralyzing the first time. So that was my first experience. But I stayed in the class, and I gave my next 5-minute talk. It wasn't quite as bad, and I stayed and did the whole semester. And at the end of the class, I was just mildly uncomfortable for those 5-minute little talks that we gave. And look at me now. So being willing to make mistakes and step out of your comfort zone, you know, that's how we grow in courage, for sure. That's how we stretch and we become greater leaders, right? And we have greater mastery in our own lives. We actually benefit from making mistakes because hopefully it lets us let go of our perfectionism, right? And just lets us be curious and explore what our capacities might be, right? So there's a practice that you can do to overcome your fear of failure, and it's called crumpled reminder. I like that word, crumpled reminder. You write down a recent mistake you made and your feelings about it. Then you crumple up the paper and you discuss ways that that mistake helped you learn and grow. I had an experience this week. I was talking to a friend and I was feeling I was in a really impatient mood. I can just give you the minimum details. Our driveway wasn't plowed. I wanted our driveway plowed. There was reasons that our landlord wouldn't allow our driveway to be plowed, and I was not in my best mood. And so I really felt, bad about being impatient with this friend of mine. And so I let them know. And, what did I learn? I learned that I can forgive. I can let go. I can apologize. And I can move through all that pretty quickly. So you see, you can learn from your mistakes. So in review, the 4 steps to growing our courage are: number 1, seeing ourselves as courageous, doing an inventory and noticing ways that we step up and act from courage. Number 2, focus on your heroes. Jesus, what an incredible example of standing for marginalized people, right? Even in his last breath, he was forgiving. He was forgiving. Remember what your core values are. Try to actualize them, live by them, walk the talk. And then lastly, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Remember Thomas Edison, when he was inventing the light bulb? He said, I have not failed 10,000 times. I just found 10,000 ways it will not work. And this quote from Mary Ann Rodmacher: courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the little voice at the end of the day that says, I'll try again tomorrow. I'll try again tomorrow. So my friends, there is so much power in unity. There's so much strength and power in our unity. That's why I'm here. That's why we're here. Let's support each other in being the love we are and being vulnerable. Courage is vulnerable. It's vulnerable to be courageous, and it's courageous to be vulnerable. So may we have courage. May our life be an expression of love in action. And may you know you're not alone. We belong to each other. Thank you. Love you all.